Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. Our guest today is Mr. John Carver, who, as of November the 1st, officially became the new director of schools for the city of Tullahoma, replacing Dan Lawson, who had been here over 20 years. So we wanted to take this opportunity to get acquainted with Mr. Carver and also find out a little bit about his background, and then we'll go into what the plans are for the future. So with that, thanks for joining us, John, and tell the folks who is John.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. I tell you, my wife Pam and I, we're getting our first Christmas here in Tullahoma, so we are very excited about it. The parade the other night was just fantastic. But yeah, my wife and I, we've been together now for 39 years. We have 2 grown children. In fact, today my daughter Emily, this is her 30th birthday. Oh. So it's a special day. Yeah. But been in education now for going on about 39 years, and during that time I've kind of served in all the chairs. I was a classroom teacher, a coach, athletic director, a short stint as an elementary principal, middle school principal, high school principal, and I served 2 districts in Iowa as a superintendent. The first district I served as a superintendent about 10, 11 years ago, we were one of the first districts, one of the first 12 districts in Iowa to embed technology into instruction. And again, it was almost biblical that there were 12 of us, and that we spread the word. And so right now today, just about every district in the state of Iowa has a 1-to-1 capacity. While that was occurring, I was also blessed to be appointed by Governor Branstad to serve on his Executive STEM Council. And for the time I was a superintendent, worked at build-out of public-private partnerships, developing a STEM-ready workforce in the state of Iowa. The second district I served, the Howard-Winneshiek School District, we were recognized by the Obama administration as being one of the first 100 future-ready districts in the country. Several trips into Washington, and had some input on the National Education Technology Plan. After that, came here.
Somewhere along the line, whatever the organization this was, you were among 50 nationwide recognized for your digital accomplishments.
We were one of 100. We weren't one of 50, but we were one of 100. And but yeah, it was exciting because we kind of stepped through the looking glass. And the thing that was exciting was that we empowered kids to take ownership in their learning. And good teaching is always good teaching. But when you have the tools, you can really amplify and accelerate learning. So yeah, I was 1 year at Murray County as their chief digital officer. And,
yes, here.
And then my year in Murray County was a great learning experience. I learned about Tennessee and finance and all that, and so here I am.
Politics, yeah.
A lot about the politics, yes, sir.
And we got lots of that. So, okay. Well, with that, let's take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll come back and get into business.
Ah, the glory days. Running to daylight on the gridiron and chasing a ball with a mind of its own. Cheering the team to victory and marching to the beat of your own drum. Memories that last a lifetime. But sometimes we're reminded of our glory days in ways we'd rather forget. Get back in the game. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live and play well.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
We're talking today, folks, with Mr. John Carver, who is the new director of Tullahoma City Schools. And we just found out a little bit about John, and now we want to go a little bit further. The first thing we want to do is take just a short minute to dispense with a little bad press we've had in the last few days, and that is the fact that the state released a report that said we were a little below state average in accomplishment, and we don't find that to be too cricket. John, you want to speak to that?
Well, I mean, a lot of things come to mind. There was an article in the Tullahoma News here this past week, and I kind of shared some of my views and perspective. The state report card, a good portion of it is based on the tests that the kids take.
Right.
And coming to Tennessee and experiencing last year in Murray County, and then it just the means by which we're assessing the kids is flawed. And there have been flawed. Yeah, yes, sir.
It's broken.
Well, yes, sir.
Or it's bent, at least.
Yeah, I don't think it's bent. I think it's broken too. And even as recently as I believe it was yesterday, I think you shared in the Chattanooga paper, Commissioner McQueen had said that the system was broken. Yeah. And so as far as Tullahoma is concerned, I was paused when I saw where we were ranked out on the Tennessee measurements.
Right.
And Susan Fanning, the director of instruction, I asked her to do kind of an analysis of that, and it was interesting in that some of the students that were on the Tennessee assessments deemed to be, because of their scores, deemed to be not proficient. Are either at West Point or scored perfect 36s on their ACTs. If you're following us on Twitter at hashtag TC Tullahoma City Schools Public, we've started a series of videos on Did You Know? And what we have found is by the Tennessee measurement, I mean it's just a snapshot. But I think that snapshot is it's not in focus. And with the videos that we've been putting up, the Did You Know videos, one of them recently talks about a sophomore boy that just got his pilot's license. And there was one that was put up last week about a young man, a senior, who is starting his own business in crocheting. And so entrepreneurialism, chasing a child's passion, as well as Tullahoma City Schools. One of our alumnus this past week was named a Rhodes Scholar by the University of Tennessee. So if we are to judge ourselves by the Tennessee measurement, boy, we're in a world of hurt. But when you start looking at other measures of excellence, sir, there's none better.
Yeah. Well, I think, that's the important point that we want to get to the folks, that the problem was in the failure of the test and the way it was administered and graded rather than in the students. And by the measurements we've been using for years that are used nationwide, we're still above the state average. So.
Well, and I think another good point to realize is that the assessments that we all have in place, and it doesn't matter if it's Tennessee, Iowa, California, or Texas, they are 20th century assessments trying to measure 21st century learning and achievement. And so there's a disconnect right there. A fill-in-the-dot trivial pursuit test does not measure a child's creativity or imagination.
Yeah. Well, I think the out of sync is going to come up again in a minute, I'm sure. Well, let's go on and talk about now. You've been here. One of your initial initiatives is to determine where we'd like to go, where we are now and where we'd like to go, and you had some techniques for doing that.
Well, I am so inspired by the school board, because to a person they have said, John, we want to meet the needs of all kids. And we have to kind of reflect on what does all mean. We've done a great job of having kids go to higher ed, but we also need to provide children who graduate from Tullahoma City schools with that start in life, either accessing TCAT and going into the trades, or maybe even starting their own businesses.
Right.
And so we need to create a structure that does that. Now, how are we going to get there? Well, first of all, we got to figure out where we're at. And so I've shared with the board that the first 100 days, which for me started November 1st and will end February 8th, I'm just learning the lay of the land and identifying where the strengths are that we can build from, and then also too identifying the areas of growth that we can build action steps from. And just start, from that, then we'll knit it together and come up with a strategic plan.
I guess we need to come back and revisit this sometime after February. Huh?
As we get into the spring, we're going to start running.
Okay. Well, you were going to have a series of workshops. You have identified, there was an interesting comment that you indicated that the education system in 10 years will look nothing like it does now.
That's correct.
So how you manage to move ahead of that instead of getting trapped behind is another interesting challenge. So speak to that. How are we going to be able to leapfrog and stay ahead of the game?
Well, yeah, my constant conversation with stakeholders, both in the community and also with the principals, and I met with the staff at Bel Air Elementary last night, is that we've got to identify what our current mental models of education are. And for example, one of our mental models is that learning is constrained by time. You have either a 45-minute period or a 90-minute period, then you go to the next thing.
All right.
And so the time is constant and the learning gets chopped up. And we need to flip that so that the learning is constant and the time has to adjust to that. And so what does that mean? We have to personalize and differentiate instruction. We have to figure out what kids' passions are. And we need to create structures by which they can chase their passions, but then link it to state standards of what we want the kids to know and be able to do. The districts that I've served previously, we made good progress towards that. We did follow the state mandated things that we had to do, but we also leveraged technology, we leveraged social media, and we were connecting children in their passions. The story I like to tell is back in Iowa during a blizzard. I was trying to figure out whether or not we were going to call the buses in to send the kids home, and I was kind of in a panic. And it was in the morning, and I walked through the elementary school, and all the kindergartners were in there with their iPads, asking questions about sharks. And in the time it took me to walk through and decide whether or not to call the buses in, the librarian through social media had connected with a marine biologist in San Diego, California, and they were Skyping with that biologist and answering their questions on sharks. And all done in real time during a blizzard from rural northeast Iowa. That's what we need to get to here in Tullahoma.
I see. Well, let's take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll come back and go some more.
Keith Barnett here at Russell Barnett Kia Tullahoma. Let me tell you about this 2019 Kia Soul, yours today for $299 a month. That's Russell Barnett Kia of Tullahoma, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. And remember, why buy anywhere else?
It's time for every family and business in Tullahoma to go green and recycle. Tullahoma Public Works makes it simple and easy to recycle. Just place your recyclable materials, paper, plastic, aluminum, and cardboard beside your garbage container on the same day your garbage is picked up. Your recycled materials don't have to be in a fancy container. Recycling is not only the right thing to do, it makes sense. Recycling pays. Paying to bury our garbage costs each of us. Please do your part. Let's go green, Tullahoma, and recycle.
When your family suffers the loss of a loved one, the caring and compassionate staff at Tullahoma Funeral Home and Coffee County Funeral Chapel are standing by to assist you in every way possible. We are proud to support local industry and offer only Batesville caskets. Many funeral homes don't own or operate a crematory. We utilize the only crematory in Coffee County. Your loved one never leaves Coffee County. We can accommodate any need and any budget. Consider our complete pre-need service to remove this burden from your family during their time of grief. Lock in today's low costs and protect from inflation. Tullahoma Funeral Home and Coffee County Funeral Chapel. Our family caring for your family.
We're talking today, folks, with Mr. John Carver, who is the new Director of Schools for the city of Tullahoma. He's just recently come to town, and so we're anxious to find out where he thinks the school system should be going and how we're going to get there. So, John, we were talking about the possibility of establishing individualized learning as opposed to having a structure based on a 45-minute class, for example.
Right.
How are you going to do that, and how do you keep track of, you know, the kids are going to be all over the map in terms of where they are?
Well, again, we have to think outside the box. And the last district that I was leading as superintendent, we were looking at standards-based grading. We were looking at outcome-based education. Whereas if you could envision a child having a digital portfolio, and instead of getting an A, B, C, D grade, they had projects that could, like a portfolio that would demonstrate their proficiency in particular skills. When you stop and look at a grading system, what does an A represent? What does a B represent? What does a C represent? And yes, those are measures that are used to get into higher ed and such, but it's been my experience, kids that are entering the workforce, the employers, they really don't look at how many A's, B's, C's, or D's did you get. They want to know what you can do. Yeah. And so we need to create an educational system that, yes, we still have those other measures in place for kids wanting to go to higher ed, but we also want to have an assessment piece where children can demonstrate what they are able and capable of doing. And we also need to have an educational system that amplifies and strengthens creativity and imagination, thinking outside the box. And many times there's not just one right answer. There could be many right answers to a solution. Can I point someplace in the world and say, yep, that's what it is? There isn't a complete K-12 system that has gotten there yet, but I will tell you, in my travels across the United States, there are pockets of excellence everywhere. And so here in Tullahoma, we're going to identify those pockets of excellence, take their best ideas, bring them back here, and build out from that. It's interesting, last night there were several Tullahoma educators, and we were on an ed chat on Twitter. And we connected last night with a school outside of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And it was interesting in that their enrollment is very similar to Tullahoma's. And their elementary school up there has gone away completely from grades, first grade, second grade, third grade. And they were, again, children were demonstrating proficiency. They had the same teacher over multiple years, and they were showing a lot of success. And so this morning, as soon as we're done here, that's on my to-do list, is to reach out there and again, find out their successes and what their challenges are, and see if that would fit here in Tullahoma.
That's interesting that you found this in Sioux Falls,
South Dakota last night.
South Dakota, which is, I don't know, do they have a heavy Indian population, possibly?
No. Well, I'm sure they do, but,
yeah, but I didn't know if that figured into what how they were approaching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not. So doing it, they did away with grades altogether.
Well, and that's what they were sharing last night.
How do you advance?
Well, again, they've identified what it is they want kids to know and be able to do, as far as reading and math, being able to communicate. And when the children have proficiency in that, then they move forward. You see, the thing you got to keep in mind is that the system we have in place now is not very flexible. And when you're in high school, your credits are earned based on what they call the Carnegie unit. And the Carnegie unit is not based on what you know, it's based on your seat time. How much time you physically have in that class determines if you get the credit or not. And so if you have mastered something, I guess in my mind it makes sense that if I already know it, why do I have to do the seat time? Isn't there some kind of mechanism that I can show that I've done it and then go on to the next thing?
Yeah.
And not hold our best and brightest back. Here in Tullahoma, we're blessed with our relationship with Motlow Community College, that if we have 17-year-olds or 15-year-olds or even 14-year-olds that are of that capacity, say in math, why would we hold them back?
Yeah, and they have a chance now to take those classes at Motlow in the advanced math.
They do,
and get credit there and in high school both. Right?
And they do, but there are restrictions in which there's an age restriction. You have to be at a certain age, and again, we need to create a system that's fluid so that it meets the needs of all children. But then again, if you have a passion that you can move through, and why are we arbitrarily sifting and sorting kids by chronological age?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, you have the reputation for being very strong in the digital arena. How does that figure into where you're trying to move us?
Well, I said earlier, good teaching is good teaching, and but with tools, you're able to amplify and accelerate teaching. Just like our television show here today. It's you and I talking. We've got 3 cameras that are being remotely run by 2 gentlemen in the back. So there's just the 4 of us creating this show where, 9-10 years ago, there probably would have been 7 or 8 people doing it. Mm-hmm. And so there's an example there on how leveraging technology, we're able to create content. And one of the things that's been a hindrance in the past is when I was in the classroom, if I did a homework assignment, many times it was for an audience of 1, the teacher. And many times I just got it done to have the teacher leave me alone. And in a digital reality, there is the possibility of every child to see what every other child is doing. And so all of a sudden, that work that was just for an audience of 1 potentially could be for an audience of the whole world. A couple weeks ago, we had a team go over to Marvin Wright Elementary School at Murray County, where I was a year ago. We went into a 4th grade classroom, and that every child in the room had a digital device, and they had 4 flat screen televisions on the wall that the children could use Apple TV, and whatever they were working on, put it on the TV. And so the teacher, as she moved around, could give one-to-one assistance, but she could also look up and see what the other children were doing, and the other children could look up and see. And all of us, if you're only doing things for an audience of 1, you get her done. But if you don't want to look silly in front of your friends.
Yeah. Now that must be kind of interesting. Well, how do you find the? Well, he's telling me we've run out of time, so we're going to have to take a short commercial break, folks, and I guess wrap up.
Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has proudly served your auto rental for over 30 years. Check out this huge selection to choose from.
Small car, mid-size car, full-size car, crossover vehicle, SUV, minivan, pickup trucks, 12 and 15 passenger vans. Whether big or small, Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has them all. Stop by our 2 locations to serve you, Tullahoma and in Winchester. And remember, my question is, why rent anywhere else?
So you've been meaning to do something healthy, commune with nature, get outdoors and meet new people. We have the perfect solution. Come hike with us. You can find a Tennessee Trails Association chapter near you, including Clarksville, Columbia Franklin, Highland Rim, Jackson, Knoxville, Oak Ridge, Memphis, Murfreesboro, Nashville, Plateau at Crossville, and Upper Cumberland. We're on the web at TennesseeTrails.org. It's fun, it's stress-free, and it's good for you. See you on the trails.
We've been talking today, folks, with Mr. John Carver, who is the newly arrived Director of Schools for the City of Tullahoma. Just been on board officially since the 1st of November, and so he's just getting his feet on the ground and trying to decide where he wants the system to go, whether we all want it to go. So, John, have you got a message you'd like to deliver to the folks out there?
You bet. Well, again, my wife Pam and I are so blessed to be here, and we are excited with all the possibilities and potential here in Tullahoma City Schools. We had senior leadership from Apple Computer here a couple weeks ago, and told them about the research facility out at Arnold, and we also took them over for lunch at Miss Mary Bobo's. And one of the comments was made from one of the Apple folks was that Tullahoma has the potential to become the next Silicon Valley. We have the infrastructure, we have the kids, and more important, we have this sense of adventure here. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
Tullahoma is going to become the next Silicon Valley?
The potential is there.
Well, that'll be good. Okay. Well, John, I want to thank you for taking time to join us, and we'll give you a couple more months, and then we'll come back and revisit how your planning is going along. And with that, folks, want to thank you for inviting us into your parlor, and we will see you next time.